Hello there, this is Marcio Galli, and here's another episode of Coding with Agents or Culture Coding with Agents. And what we have throughout these episodes are reflections from the day, from the routine of a builder, a developer, okay, as we go through the AI agentic days. All right, so what I have today, usually what happens is that I'm working, and then because I'm not recording 24 by 7, I try to capture the moment after it happens. So, but when it happens, when I think it's worth to pause everything and start recording, then I do that. But what's going on? What's going on there basically is, oh, we should pause to talk about this, and I know that can be, for a person that is working something, it could be a distraction because we're zooming out the situation, right? But also, I have seen that this process sometimes is really good. It's almost like the same thing that you got to do when you're really in a flow, but you want to slow down and pause the flow. Because everybody talks about the good things about the flow, right? But then no one talks about the when the flow affects the parent level flow, the view from above, the strategic parts. So the flow is great, but flow can be your enemy because you don't know when to stop the party. And then I'm talking about that, it's I know it's in part philosophical, but it makes sense in management, right? But also it makes sense in terms of your body, your mind, in terms of dopamine levels. All right. So, situation today that I decided to pause here to reflect is this because it's something new. Or I think that across the episodes, what's happening here is that I keep bringing up these reflections when I see something that is really like life as we know it, work and management as we know it through the AI agentic days. Okay. So the context here, in my screen, we have one screen there, other screen here, and another, and three. I tell you, these are three different systems that came up in maybe in the past 6 months. Okay. And these systems are meant to help me synchronize things across projects. What I mean by that? For instance, I'm working in client with different projects. Think about different boxes for different clients, okay? And sometimes you update something in a project. But when you update, say 10, I have 10 clients, and pick one of them. And then you improve that client project. But then what happens is that we break the other nine projects, okay? Projects. And how you solve that, right? You need to remember to update the other projects, right? So projects are in motion, we're evolving, improving, and then all of those others are all of a sudden broken. The house version of this, it would be maybe, I don't know. It's like you organize a box, a cabinet, and then it's really nice, but you want to do for the others. How you do for the others, right? So if you had a humanoid in your place, oh, see the organization here. Now all the others are broken. In the business world, the problem is worse because in your house you have the day by day experience, and well, and there's the good and bad things in the house version of this, right? Because in the house version, you may or may not do it. If you want to do it, you can take the lessons from organizing box X and then go and organize the other rooms. But in the management and in work, and if you think about companies, organizations, they're trying to scale. That's the difference, right? The difference in terms of pressure. Because in your house, you may not think as your place, as a place to scale. But in the work version, in the startup version, in the scale up version, and with organizations, oh yes, now you have a problem there, right? Because you are being forced, pressured to organize and to scale. So that's the thing about the need to do that, right? And I needed a system, right? What's the system to help me out there? And I tell you, as a computer scientist, I am not good in those things. I'm like more like a founder, entrepreneur, seasoned, we say, right, with experience, but also not a hardcore developer, engineer. All right. So then I had three systems because I tried to do this. I wanted to have systems. I broke 9 clients today because of something really nice that came up by motivated by the case of client A. So it's usually, right, it's motivated by the case of client A that you break B, C, D, and Z up to Z. Or it's the next day you're motivated by client E and you broke all the others. All right. So system A, system B, and system C are attempts to do that, to enter the jungle, enter the challenge there in a space that I confess I have no experience. I have some idea, but no experience. And the first one came up is this one. So I came up, actually three, right? But those are not three because this first one, I think it evolved like, let's say through 5 episodes there. And the other, this, it evolved 2 or 3 days. When I say evolved is you're working again on that and you're versioning the system. But the third one, it was not at all used. It's a conceptual one. And it's probably the best. But it misses some points of the second and the first. So the first was the one really that I used to give me data there. So the idea there, because I was fearing. And the thing is, in the idea world, right? You updated client A, and you broke between B and Z. And in the idea world, you could ask your the right the genius next to you. You could say, hey, could you go through all my clients, organize the room of this box here? Because in this project for client A, I have a box. We end up changing the structure of that box. Can you go through, do it for me and let me know when it's all good? Right? That's the idea. But when I started to do this, I was like, whoa. And right, how we do this? Because I could ask AI, right? If I have like the AI agent. I direct it with other clients, B to Z there, and A is a reference. I say copy, right? Take the lessons. You see the changes that I made there. Copy over there. Right? That could work, and it would use tokens. And also I feared because these things are in motion, right? I'm using now Codex 5.2, but I wasn't using 6 months ago. So I came up with the idea. Initially, it was not called inspectors. So I had this notion of cards. So that's why on the left hand side I came up with cards. So these cards they have some information there. Let me open a shell here. I don't want to dig into much because it's pointless to in terms of strategy, right? This is a strategic, a high level conversation. So let's see. Just so open, so yeah, something there, demo. You see, I have this article meta. It's basically, this card is it's like a validating, auditing thing. So if I activate, it can go through all the different clients, the B to Z, checking against a change. But that's a very specific, each card specific to a change. It has to do with a change in a given box. It doesn't matter the box, it's a folder, it's a file. Okay. But then I realized, so I had cards, multiple cards there for checking the existence of files, right? That kind of thing. Then in another situation, I had to I really wanted to make the change because the first it was more like auditing. Let me know which sites are broken. Don't let for instance, B to Z in terms of this card, right? A specific check system. B to Z are failing. Now we run again with this other card, and B to Z they're passing, or maybe depending on the card, everything is passing, and K it's failing. But audit in this order, it was not audit at all. It was change, and I feared again, to do the changes, and so I decided to create temporary boxes, directories, and move all the files to a directory and do change, and then do another change on top, create a new version in directories again and again. And then if everything was okay in the end, they would look at it and then would copy that to the place to real place. And yeah, that's the second. And the third one had some ideas of again the cards, right? And with what I call detectors, to so I could visualize in different ways. I really wanted to visualize things. So, for instance, here on the right hand side, oops, right there, it could tell me for the many files, for instance, right? This is an example of how a card could, see like there is a version there, the four attributes are correct, the 001, but then 002, two of attributes are missing, right? Something like that. It's basically about going through many boxes, auditing, and visually telling, showing, right, the auditing thing, the results of the audit process. All right, and then that's it. But going back to the right coding with agents, what is this? What can we reflect here? What's a good new thing here to talk about? Well, today I started the day and I wanted to make a session with my buddy here. This is Visual Code with Codex 5.2. I wanted to make a session and to talk about these three systems, because maybe there is a fourth one coming up here. And then I just went, I organized these three systems in a directory side by side, and then I started having the conversation there, right? Oh, hello there. Let's talk about these three systems. Let us first create a memo, the goals, and then at some point I said in the memo, I asked my buddy here to help me out creating sections for analysis for each project. And then I said, "Now go ahead and do the analysis," right? And when the ping pong, passing the ball, call it whatever you want, we're iterating, right? Hey, tell me something. The fact that it returns some data through in the memo and here, and then I remembered everything, right? It was good. And then at some point, I asked for the pluses and downsides for each. It was really interesting to read. And then I realized, oh yeah, the first was just about inspecting. I remember that. But it was doing a good job because it was basically going through all the projects from B to Z, for example, or actually from A to Z, because usually the reference change is not A, right? It's separated. When you evolve a client, you take it out from the collection, right? And you say, oh, you look at that, and so it brought the context to me, to my attention. I was able to enter the room and say, oh yes, the idea of the cards are really nice. I had card A and B and C, and I could version them. And basically that card inspector, that's why I called inspector. Basically, the card inspector was responsible for inspecting from A to Z using that hat or mindset, call it whatever you want, right? Stay there. This is it, right? You put this hat, you're responsible for a certain pattern there, right? You're like, ah, yes. So with this hat, I only checking, electrical systems updates across agency, right? But then I have another hat there, right? Oh, so this is visual design updates here. Right? Anyway, just to illustrate the point. All right. The table with the pluses and minuses of each project gave me a context for this person that now needs to do the strategic management and decision, probably for what's the next, what's the newer version, right? And then after that, an interesting thing, this was basically being naive, or I don't know. So these days, I think after now, we're probably in episode, I don't know, 60 or something. I don't even know which is this episode. Usually I put the number after. And I think I'm entering a space now where, I want to trust more these buddies, these colleagues here, right? Trust more. Just, because I confess that maybe for at least 40 episodes, or actually 6 months of work, it was basically about micromanaging sessions, But now I want to start considering, right, provoking the system to just do. And this is a kind of a strategic view from above, right? That it's in the middle there. It's between micromanagement. I know it's influenced with everything I did before, of course. Yet, as we look from above and identify pluses and minuses, right? Where what are we doing here? What we're doing is we are I'm trusting the model to tell me, and the model is going to influence a lot of things here, right? So I could even, like, perhaps I could say I fear doing that. I don't want to do that, but perhaps one day I could do something like, just create a system for me with what you got the point. You understood, right? Where we're going here. So make a whole new system for me that does that, and it's probably going to implement something much better than what I did, right? Because it knows other projects. But we're not there yet. I'm not ready for that yet. Right? So the general overview, I was able to approach a potential. Oops. I was able. We are now at a point here where we are drafting the fourth version, temporary draft. Then there's some ideal characteristics there, right? A single source of truth for schemas through versioned cards and explicit patterns. That sounds interesting, for whoever is the technical person there. Staged reversible migrations, pluggable migration tasks, validation export pipeline, strong configuration discipline, UI and CLI parity. I don't know what that means. I probably know. Audit trails and reporting with traceability, incremental adoption path that wraps existing scripts. See, it's a lot of jargon there, eh? And I tell you, it's not the tool. It was from this old chunk of coal now on fire here, for sure. And this sounds really interesting. So I'm gonna close the video today. I don't want to ask them to do it because I fear that may work. I don't know. Let us close the session. Thank you very much.